Let's take a look at three pitchers who will be tough to rank in 2025. Up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and it is Friday, September 27th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Three pitchers who will be pretty tough to rank in 2025. They all pitched well here on Thursday, and we will start with Corbin Burnes. 5 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts, which might not sound that great, but 16 whiffs on 69 pitches. Scott, he has altered his cutter, and it sounds like he's kind of figured that back out. He's also entering free agency this offseason, so there are some questions for Corbin Burnes heading into next season.
I think there were a lot of answers provided, though, in an article in the Baltimore Banner that kind of explains everything that's been going on for Corbin Burnes this season, and in particular what happened in August when things went so poorly for him. Since August, in 6 starts, Corbin Burnes has a 1.29 ERA, 0.94 WHIP, exactly a strikeout per inning, and with a really high swinging strike rate. Okay, clearly he got back on track. Why did that happen? Well, his cutter hadn't been right all year. Too much spin was causing it to rise more than cut. Basically turned it into a crappy fastball, is how Corbin Burnes himself put it. And he didn't really bother to fix it, to really look into it, because he was succeeding anyway. It was only in August when hitters were laying off the breaking balls and just sitting on that cutter, which was just a bad fastball, and things went wrong, that Burnes went to work on the cutter. In September, he's gotten the horizontal movement profile back to where it was in 2022. He's doubled the chase rate on the cutter, and the results have been much, much, much better. So I feel, after losing faith in Burnes there for a while, I feel confident ranking him as an ace next year. I think he'll be in my top 5. And I say that pretty confidently. I don't think he'll be that tough to rank.
All right, let's move over to the pitcher that opposed him in this one. Gerrit Cole, 6 2/3 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts, and did that once again in spite of not having his slider working here. The overall number is still very good, 3.41 ERA, 1.13 WHIP. We do have that elbow injury in the back of our minds that Gerrit Cole was dealing with earlier this season. But Scott, it feels like Cole could potentially be a tough one to rank next year as well.
Yeah, it does, because why has he not been featuring his slider? Why has it not been as effective when he used it? Is there still something going on with that elbow? I think you have to downgrade him somewhat for that. But what does it mean to downgrade Gerrit Cole? He's been consistently one of the top 2 or 3 pitchers drafted in fantasy for years now. Okay, he's not going to be that. Top 15 or so? I think factoring in the risks, that seems fair. In fact, factoring in the risk versus the reward. It's worth pointing out that even without the effectiveness of the slider, he's been really good, even better than the baseline numbers might suggest, because his 4 worst starts this year, 2 were against the Red Sox, 2 were against the Mets. What does that matter? Well, those are the 2 organizations that have always had Gerrit Cole's number. Mets and Red Sox, for his entire career, they beat him up. You take out the 4 starts against those 2 teams that always throttle Cole, 153 ERA, 0.90 WHIP, 10K per 9. So there's a lot to like here for Cole still.
What about Joe Musgrove, who turned in another quality start, this one at the Dodgers? 6 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. Since returning from the IL, 2.15 ERA, a 0.87 WHIP, over a strikeout per inning. Another pitcher who was dealing with an elbow injury earlier on the season, but since returning, he pretty much has looked like prime Joe Musgrove.
Yeah, and I feel pretty confident in him. I understand he had the shoulder issue last year, and he missed a portion of this year with an elbow injury. But what was the elbow injury? It was a bone spur that he's continued to pitch through without it compromising his effectiveness. So it doesn't seem like a big deal to me. He'll have it addressed in the offseason. He'll come back next spring, and I imagine he'll pick up where he left off. Is there zero injury risk there? No, there's some for Musgrove, but he does have a track record of being an innings eater. Not the last 2 seasons, but the overall track record, and he's still very, very effective when healthy. I think he'll be in my top 30, Musgrove.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.